Check out this sleek modern laptop. Or what about these futuristic smart glasses, which is part of the kind of smart gadgets that will take over the gadget world in the next 5 to 10 years. You know, computers didn't look like this before this present generation. Computers have passed through 5 changing generations, and each generation brought about changes in the features or what made up the computer in each one. Welcome to week 3's topic, where we will be looking at generations of the computer. Using a comparison to what we are about to experience, you will agree with me that telephones have passed through different times with several modifications. There was a time when the telephones were majorly in this twisting landline form. Then it was modified to the pressing of button form. Then we began to have the mobile types like the huge walkie-talkie-like mobile phones. Then it was reduced a bit to a smaller antenna type. Then it now came to the flip type, the type you could flip. Then the very popular bar type, which was dominated by then BlackBerry. And now to the very popular touchscreen type, which is currently used for Android and iPhone devices. Very similarly, computers have passed through modifications and upgrades, and we will be looking at them in some detail, starting with the first generation. Now, the first generation computers lasted between 1940 to 1956. Here, computers used vacuum tubes as its processor technology. Now, the processor technology simply means that device in the computer that is responsible for processing data and commands, all right, is just like what we popularly know as the brain of the computer for our 4th generation computers, which is the CPU, all right? They were more or less like the brain of the computer as at that generation. Now, moving on, magnetic drums were used for memory. They were very large. They supported only machine language to perform its programming and operations. Machine language was the most basic form of representing digital data, which is binary, zeros and ones. And this was very, very difficult to program with. They used punch cards and paper tape as their input devices. Now, since first generation was the very first breakthrough of computers, there were some limitations, such as they could only solve one problem at a time. They were very large and could occupy an entire room. Since they supported only machine language, it was very difficult to write programs with them. And they generated a lot of heat when in use. Examples of computers created during this generation include the ENIAC, which is Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, the EDVAC, Electronic Discrete Variable Automatic Computer, EDSAC, Electronic Delay Storage Automatic Computer, and UNIVAC, Universal Automatic Computer. I believe this sounds very familiar as we looked at this in the history of computers. Now continuing to second generation computers. This generation of computers were prominent between 1956 to 1963. Vacuum tubes used in the first generation were replaced by the use of transistors. The use of transistors made computers in this generation to be smaller, faster in processing, cheaper, and more accurate. They consumed power and produced lots of heat when in use, but not as much as first generation computers. Now, they did not only support machine language, but also supported assembly language, which was a mixture of binary language and some English symbols or English words. Okay, so it was still cumbersome to program with, but because they started adding English words, it became less cumbersome than first generation. Unlike the magnetic drums used to store memory in the first generation, memory was stored using magnetic disks or tape technology and even magnetic core. The computers here were the first to store their instructions in memory. Now, examples of computers present in this generation include IBM 7030, NCR 315, Honeywell 800, etc. Now, moving to the third generation computers. This began from 1964 to 1971. The integrated circuit replaced the use of transistors. And this integrated circuit was made up of highly compressed transistors embedded on a single silicon chip. As a result, its speed of operation became much faster than the previous generations. It also introduced the use of an operating system, which provided a platform for other software applications to run. They no longer used punch cards as input devices, but used a keyboard and monitor for output. They were much smaller in size and cheaper than the previous generations, making them available to a wider public. Another important development was that the assembly language used in second generation was upgraded to high-level language in this generation. High-level language was a more convenient way to program than assembly language because it didn't contain binary code anymore, but was made up of English words and mathematical symbols, which was more understandable to human beings. Very good examples of high-level programming language introduced were Fortran, COBOL, etc. They also had a large storage capacity compared to the two previous generations. Examples of third generation computers include UNIVAC 1108, IBM 370, and PDP 11. Now, It's not People's Democratic Party. The meaning of the PDP here is personal data processor. Now, moving to the fourth generation computers. This generation of computers began from 1971 and are still much in use till now. The microprocessor was the processor technology which replaced the integrated circuit. It uses very large-scale integrated circuit technology, and this simply means that microprocessors were created by embedding thousands of integrated circuits onto one silicon chip. Now, are you noticing a pattern? What kept increasing the speed of these processors as generations went by was the act of compressing the processor technology of the previous generation, multiplying them and fitting all of them into a single silicon chip. Really, really impressive. Now, this single silicon chip is often referred to as the central processing unit, which is the CPU. I believe this makes much sense because it's a very popular term in computer. We know that the CPU is also known as the brain of the computer, which does the processing of commands and data. Now, as a result of this, computer processing power was greatly increased. Now, this generation also introduced the use of mouse as an input device. It also introduced the use of graphical user interface, GUI, which was developed to improve the interaction between users and the computer. To explain this a bit more, before now, it used to be command line interface, which was just majorly the screen on black with just text. But in order to make it more interactive, as human beings are more visually inclined, they introduced the use of graphical user interface that uses icons, pictures, and the likes. Examples of computers in this age include desktop computers, laptops, palmtops, even smartphones. Now, moving to the last one, the fifth generation computers. The fifth generation computers were introduced in the 1990s, but are still under development till date. It is majorly characterized by artificial intelligence, which started becoming very rapid from 2020 till date. It uses ultra-large scale integration, where millions of integrated circuits are embedded in microprocessor chips. It also makes use of nanotechnology. The idea behind fifth generation computers is to develop devices that demonstrate human-like intelligence, such as responding to natural language inputs, learning and self-organization, etc. There are already very rampant applications presently, and some good examples include artificial intelligence, voice recognition, like what we have with Google, where you can use your voice to search a topic instead of typing. All right. We also have chatbots, which is so popular now, like the popular ChatGPT, okay, and even chatbots that are created by different banks. We have self-driving cars that can drive themselves. We have robotics, okay, and we also have smart gadgets like smart watches, okay, smart glasses. Like I said earlier, the future is where all these smart gadgets take control. You get to see how a glasses you wear can give you idea on the things you are seeing around you. Like if you see a dress that somebody is wearing, you can ask the glasses where the dress was gotten from, and it can give you information just to give you a bit of a clue, to where technology in terms of gadgets is heading to. So yeah, there we have it. This is, we have just successfully looked at the 5 generations that computers have passed through. So very quickly, let's do some evaluative questions. The first one is, state the full meaning of ENIAC, EDVAC, EDSAC, and UNIVAC. The next question is, what was the programming language used in 2nd generation computers? The next question is, what generation was the use of keyboards to replace punch cards introduced? And the last question is, why was the use of graphical user interface introduced in 4th generation computers? And now the personal evaluative questions. What did you notice was the pattern adopted by creators of these succeeding generations in improving the processor technology of each generation? So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience learning about generations of computer. So as usual, attempt the questions before you look at the answers, and see you in the next topic. God bless you.